Hi, my name's Alice Courtley and I'm the author and illustrator of Lost in the City, which has been shortlisted for this year's Klaus Flugge Prize.
Lost in the City is a story about a little girl called Maya who lives in a cosy little house in the countryside with her gran and their little kitten Sammy. One day, Gran tells Maya that they're going into the city, but Maya doesn't want to go. The city is a big scary new place and she likes being safe and cozy at home instead. But when she discovers that Sammy is snuck into her backpack, she has to find the courage to face her fears and look after him. In doing so, she discovers that the city is actually full of some pretty exciting and wonderful things. It's a book about stepping out of your comfort zone and finding the courage to do new things. I first started working on Lost in the City in 2020. Like a lot of people, I was worrying about the pandemic and lockdown and not wanting to go outside and do things in public. It was not a fun time, but I wanted to channel some of those feelings into my book and explore what it meant to step outside of your comfort zone and embrace big scary things. One very exciting thing that happened that year was that we got our own little orange kitten called Oscar, who was and still is a bundle of fun and mischief. Our old family cat Sammy sadly passed away around the same time. There was this one picture of Sammy stuck in my memory where he'd climbed into my school bag, and I remember having to seriously resist the urge to take him to school with me. This ended up being one of the main inspirations for the story. The project began in my sketchbook, working out who the main characters would be. I then focused on getting the text just right, and I worked with my editor Ellie, sending drafts back and forth until we were both happy. Then I met with the designer Izzy, who laid out the text across the book, and I started working on thumbnails, which eventually turned into more detailed roughs, to agree on what would be on each page. I remember going for a walk during this time and thinking, how on earth am I going to do all of these complicated illustrations of scenes that I'm not currently allowed to visit, like libraries, galleries, shopping malls, and drawing hundreds of people that I'm not currently allowed to see or interact with? I'd never done anything like this before, and the scale of it was quite daunting, but I embraced my inner Maya and stuck with it anyway. Once the roughs had been approved, I moved on to creating the final images for the book. As much as I would have loved to hand paint everything, the complexity of the spreads and the possibility of having to make edits meant that it worked well to approach this digitally. I used my iPad and Procreate to build up the layers in the image, firstly focusing on the shapes and colour balance, and then adding in detail and texture on top. We used a bright orange Pantone for Sammy in the book so that he's easier to spot, and it was very important to get proofs and test prints done early on to see how this might look. One of my favourite things about creating lots of busy spreads was getting the chance to hide things in the details. I think that this is a really nice thing to do in picture books, because they often get read over and over, and it adds in a little bit more enjoyment to spot new things each time and to keep things from feeling too repetitive. I liked having recurring characters crop up throughout the book, like this man and his dog who have their own adventure. And I featured a few people that I know in real life, including my mum, in these busy gallery spreads, as she works as a tour guide in London.
I wanted to say a massive thank you to everybody who helped me make the book. The fantastic team at Hachette, my amazing agent Claire, and all of my friends and family who helped along the way. Thank you to the Klaus Flugge Prize judges for including me on this year's shortlist. It's such an honour to be there alongside the other 4 fantastic illustrators. And last but not least, thank you to everybody who's read the book. It means the absolute world to me.